Welcome back to Spirit Music Meetups. Mike Burris here. We're on the Holiness page. And if we're going to understand how to be holy, pure, and you can see there's a lot of videos about that, we have to understand, what is sin? What is this word? I mean, what an odd word. You look up dictionary definitions in English, it's not the same. You have to go back to the original languages and see what they say it is. I don't care what the English dictionary, I don't care what a Spanish dictionary or Italian dictionary, I care about what the original language is, what was going on in their minds when they used this word. Now, one English word could be translating many different Greek words, and you would never know, but they're probably all different. But what we can do is go in. So I'm just going to go look at Ephesians 2:1. It says, and you were dead in the trespasses and sins. So I'm going to go into Bible Hub so that I can see what is going on here. Ephesians 2:1. I'm going to type that in Bible Hub, and I'm going to hit the word interlinear, and it's going to take us to very interesting. Ephesians 2:1, and you being dead in the trespasses, and coupled or linked to this, the sins. So why is he using two different words? That's important. They're not. Why is he using two different words? Let's go look at. We were dead in the specific, definite article. So trespasses is the word paraptwma, paraptwma. Paraptwma means properly a falling away after being close beside. Oh, we were close beside. Para means close beside, like parallel. So this is referring to these people being close beside the Lord, and they fell away. There was a lapse. There was a deviation from who they were close beside with, or from the truth, an error, a slip-up, wrongdoing that can be relatively unconscious or non-deliberate. So we may not even be aware of this. A falling away, a lapse, a slip, a false step, a trespass. And it's even translated sin. So there you go. Some people are translating this sin, but it's not the same word as sin. So what is going on there? So paratomma. So we'd have to look at why are they saying it the trespasses, plural, and the sins. Ephesians 2:1. So I would want to look at, because that's verse 1, I would want to look at Ephesians 1, chapter 1, because it's leading up. So we would want to know what specific trespasses, what specific sins. Well, at the very end of chapter 1, he's just talking about how Jesus has come. He's praying. He's praying for them that Christ has come, put all things under his feet, and given him head over all things in the church, which is his body, the fullness of him. He's talking about the church. And so what is he referring to about the trespasses and the sins? He's called us to being redeemed by his blood, forgiveness. Oh, there it is. So you always want to look back and to see if he's talked about sins and trespasses. In him we have redemption, verse 7, through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses. So I would want to go look at verse 7 and Ephesians chapter 1 verse 7 and look at, yep, there it is, parakoh, and I could have probably figured this out because when you click on 3900 paraptwma and paraptwma, and we can see all the uses of that Greek word, and we could have gone into Ephesians and we could see that it was used in Ephesians 1:7 and then back down in Ephesians 2:1. And so we could have seen how he's already referred to the trespasses, our trespasses, that Christ has forgiven us of. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses according to the riches of his grace, which he lavished upon us in all wisdom and insight. So words are always defined by their context. And so we know this is about the blood that is going to cover us, the forgiveness of our trespasses. And so we know now what those trespasses mean. It means falling away from being close beside. We were close beside God probably when we were first created, and we lapsed. It's our lapses from the real, from the truth, from God's holiness, from God's purity, right? So now let's go look at going back to Ephesians 2:1. That's what we were looking at, Ephesians 2:1. So now we know what paraptwma means, and then it says he links and the sins. So that's amartia, and amartia properly means missing the target, missing the mark, missing the target you're aiming at. So God's target is his holiness. Be holy as I am holy. So missing the target is amartia. It says properly no share, no part of. So we're not part of. It's a loss or forfeiture because we are not hitting the target. So we are not hitting the target. So we're not getting what the target promised to give us. So this word sin is really just missing the target. A forfeiture because you missed the target is the brand of sin that emphasizes its self-originated, self-empowered nature. It is not originated or empowered by God, right? Because what is not of faith is sin. And so we find that it is not of God. It is therefore not of the target, that God is the target, right? Be like God. Be holy as I am holy. So be pure. So it is having impurity, right? Missing the target. Missing the target. Having no share. You can't have, right? You hit the target, you get the bullseye, you win, right? You can't win if you don't hit the target. So that's what amartia is. Now, what's interesting is by looking here, you can see Englishman's Concordance. Let's go back down in Ephesians, and it says, look at all 173 occurrences. And I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go down to Ephesians to see how Paul uses it in that letter. And he only uses it one time in Ephesians 2:1. Wow. But he uses it a lot of times in other letters. So that's very interesting. He gave it the direct article, the sins, but he uses the coupler. The coupler, kai, means and associated or coupled to the trespasses. So we already know he refers to the trespasses, that the forgiving blood of Jesus. So he's associating sins, but he's showing that they're a little bit different, right? You see how they're a little bit different. So let's look again. Paraptwma is that falling away from being close beside. So it's assuming, it's kind of saying we were close beside God and we lapsed away from it. So we fell away. Paraptwma. We fell away. It's a trespass. We disconnected from the real. But sins means we didn't even hit the real. And it's implying something that is predetermined, self-originated, self-empowered. So, we throw a dart. This paraptwma is we slid away from being connected, parallel, up close beside God. We just fell away. So it's like sins of omission. We just failed to stay. We failed to stay close, so we fell away. And that's a trespass. Amartia is like we're throwing darts. We are doing this. And we're not even hitting the target. We're hitting over here. We're hitting over here. We're doing stuff that is not connected to the holiness of God. It's separate from the holiness of God. It did not hit the target, right? And then when we're close to God, at times we are, right? We don't maintain it. We fall away, like apostasy. So we just fall away. We don't stay with the Lord. So sometimes we get on the target and we're there, we're para, and then we don't stay there. So it really takes care of both, intentional and unintentional. We just, poof, we let go. We didn't stick, right? We did not abide, right? Jesus said we had to abide in the vine to produce much fruit. Carry, bear much fruit. He produces it. But if we don't, if we disconnect, right, the juice can't go to the branch, cannot produce fruit. So there's that trespass. And then sin is like, we're just doing our own thing. We're not hitting the target at all. We just care about our own targets instead of God's targets. So we're not even making connection, right? We're doing things that don't even make connection. So God handles both, right? God's taking care of both. And that's what it says in Ephesians 2. And we're going to look at this some more in some other verses. And you were dead. You were, past tense. You were dead, it says. You were dead. You were dead. And it says, and you being dead. That's a participle describing us. And you already presently and ongoingly being dead. So you are presently, habitually, it says, routinely. It's a present participle, means you right now and forever in the future, you are presently and ongoingly dead in the trespasses and sins, it says, in which you once walked. That's verse, the sins of you, in which you once walked. Okay, aorist, indicative, era. Okay, so this is something in the past. Christians, you walked in them, you walked all about, you lived in them. And it's viewed as a whole, aorist. You really did this. And you see, those trespasses and sins that you just lived in, you just did them, every day. Of course we did them every day. It says, those things, you were dead. You were dead in them, in which you once walked. Being dead. I mean, yeah, dead. The word necros. Right? Necros. So those things killed us. Right? Presently and ongoingly. That means we're dead. Now and forevermore. Those sins killed us. We're dead. And it says, according to the age of the world, of this world. Yes, that's the ones that you walked. So we walked in this world. It is all just trespasses and sin. And it's down from, according to the ruler. So this world has got plenty of trespasses and sin. And it comes down, what flows downhill? Shit. Crap. It flows downhill. And that's where it's coming, from the world and from the ruler of the authority of the air of the spirit. And it says Satan is the ruler and the authority of the air, the heavenly realm. He's the prince in power. He's the ruler of the air. If you want to know where storms come from, hurricanes that kill people, it's Satan. It's not acts of God. And it says it's the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. There is a spirit inside of every man. And it's that ruler. The old man is the spirit, not the new man. These are the sons of disobedience. They're not the ones that came to Christ. They are the ones that have not come to Christ. It is now working. That's who is working in every non-Christian. It is the ruler. And it comes down from the ruler, and it comes down from the world. And it says, among whom also we all lived once upon a time. And he's talking about Christians. In the desires, by the means of the desires, dative case, of the flesh, our flesh, it says, doing the things that the flesh willed, it desired to do, strongly desired, strongly desired. This is the flesh, the things in our flesh. And the thought, and its thoughts, not just the things in our flesh, and its thoughts, it has thoughts in the mind, right? And we were children by nature of wrath. We were enmities of God, the wrath of God, as even the rest of the world. Just like the rest of the world, yes, children of wrath. And we were, right, continuously. Imperfect tense means continuously. We were continuously by nature. It says, yes, by nature. The flesh, by nature, yes, children of wrath. See, we were born into this, even as the rest of the world is. Wow. But God, being rich in mercy, because of His great love with which He loved us. Verse 25. Oh, by grace you were saved, made alive with Christ. This is the good news. We were dead. There it is again, verse 25. Even as we were dead, being presently and ongoingly, routinely, habitually, as a lifestyle, dead, there it is again, in the trespasses. So he doesn't have to say sins, because it's all linked together. Trespasses and sins. He doesn't have to keep saying that, because he's already coupled them together. Same trespasses. We were dead. We were presently, ongoingly dead in these transgressions, these trespasses. But He's made us alive with Christ. By grace you are saved. So, unconditional, unmerited, undeserved, unearned, loving favor. That's what grace means. And there's a whole page on that. So now we know what sin is and what paraptwma is, trespasses. What about the word iniquity? Iniquity. You hear that word, all these English words. And I'm going to go look at the New Testament, so I want to look at how that New Covenant revelation uses it. And it's in 2 Timothy 2:19. So I'm going to go over to 2 Timothy 2:19 in the interlinear Bible HUD. 2 Timothy 2:19. Again, your English Bible may be using all kinds of words, and you would never know it, what the actual meanings of those words are. So 2 Timothy 2:19, and it says, "Let depart everyone from iniquity, naming the name of the Lord." Every one of us should depart. And that is adikia. 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 Means not, and dikia is justice. So it's not justice. Properly, the opposite of justice. It's justice and righteous are often used simultaneously as synonyms. So it means to be unrighteous as a violation of God's standards of justice, which brings divine disapproval, a count or violation of God's judgment, what is contrary to his righteous judgments, his just judgments, what he approves of. So adikia, iniquity, is really a court term. It's a judicial term. So there's the ways of God, which are his law, his instruction, his Torah, which is based on his holiness. And this is not referring to 613 laws of the Old Covenant. We're under a new covenant. But he has a definition of his character and how he, in the court of law, how he's going to judge every single person. He is the only just judge. That's why we are not to judge. So he is the just judge, and he's going to judge all mankind based on his character, his law. And the Jews are judged under 613 commandments. Paul says those who have not the law are judged apart from the law. They're judged on the law of their conscience, which God has already told every man what they should and shouldn't do. And where does it say that? I'll just say Gentile and law. And it says in Romans, "For when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do what the law requires, they are a law unto themselves, even though they do not have the law." So, Gentiles are doing and not doing things of the law, and they have a conscience. And we can look up the word conscience, and we can find that in Romans chapter, I'm not lying, my conscience bears, they show, they show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them. So they have thoughts within them that are either, patting themselves on the back, you did the right thing, or excusing or accusing them. And that is their conscience. And that is a law unto them. So it's a law unto them. So it talks about that. Paul says, how does God judge the Gentiles? How's God judging the Jews? And that's where the word judge and law. And in Romans, "For all who have sinned without the law will also perish without the law." So God doesn't have to use the law of the Jews. They're going to still perish. "And all who have sinned under the law will be judged by the law." And this is the thing in Romans a lot of this is laid out in Romans because it's a thesis, really a doctrinal dissertation on the gospel. No one is righteous. Are we Jews any better off? No, not at all. For we have all sinned. We have already charged that all, both Jews and Greeks, are under the dominion of the slavery of sin. As it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of asps is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses. Yep, listen to all the cuss words, vulgarity, and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Look at the violence of today. And in their paths are ruin and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. That's why we sin, because none of us really fears God. And now we know that, so it says, but the righteousness of God that has been manifested apart from the law, although the law and prophets bear witness to it, is a righteousness of God, that's justice of God, through faith in Jesus Christ, for all who have faith. For there is no distinction, for all have sinned and fall, there is that word sinned again, and fallen short of the glory of God. And we are justified by His grace, unmerited, deserving, right, loving, as a gift, through the redemption, that's being bought back, paid with a price, that is in Christ Jesus, whom God put forth as a propitiation. That's a really fancy word, meaning a transference of His righteousness for our unrighteousness, our sin for His sinlessness, by His blood to be received by faith. And this was to show God's righteousness, because in divine forbearance He had passed over former sins. Yeah, before the law, right? It was to show His righteousness at the present time, His justice, right? It's to show His justice. Yeah, God has to pass judgment on sin. So He did it so He might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. So God is just. He has to pass sentence on sin, and He is also the justifier. He's the one that is going to justify her. So He passes judgment on sin by putting the sentence on Christ. And He transfers that forgiveness, right, that payment, that redemption. That redemption means He paid for us. Like we were slaves and He paid for a slave to set the slave free. So He sets us free, so He becomes the justifier of the one who has put their faith in Jesus, dependence, trust, and reliance on Jesus. So how can we boast? There is no room for boasting, he says. Oh, look at that. Isn't that something? It says, for God is not the God of Jews only. He is not is He not the God of Gentiles also? Yes, of Gentiles also, since God is one. So He gives the Jews and the Gentiles the same solution. So now we've just determined what iniquity meant. Iniquity means not just, not of justice. So we've done a lot of things that were not of justice. Oh boy, there's so much unfairness in our lives, and we've hurt so many people that it was not just, it was not fair. It was not according to justice. It was not according to equity. You know, they talk about justice, and there's so much injustice being done by these people who are talking about justice. It's just amazing. They're so blind that they commit so much injustice as they're talking so much about justice. Unbelievable. Justice warriors are the most unjust. And God is keeping track of it all. So is there any other words that we should look at? You know, Net Bible sometimes we'll give you all the synonyms. And so we could look at Ephesians 2:1, which we did, right? Let's go look at Ephesians 2:1 and see if they gave us some tools here. Ephesians 2:1, we're going to click on that. And we can look at the word sins, amartia. I'm going to click on that. Yay! It gives us a lot more definition. So I like using Classic Net Bible. But it says synonyms. See definition 5879. Oh my, we hit the jackpot. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. I'm going to put this down in the description. 10 words that are synonyms, but synonyms don't mean they're exactly the same. There's a slight difference between them. And so we saw some really cool things here. Paraptwma is used in different senses, sometimes in a milder sense, denoting an error, a mistake, or a fault, right? It was not intentional, it was just an error or mistake. Sometimes meaning a willful trespass or sin. So, see? Wow. So this is very good. And amartia means originally missing of the mark. When applied to moral things, the idea is similar. It is missing the true end of life, the intended purpose of life. And so it is used as a general term for sin. It means both the act of sinning and the result of sinning, which is the sin itself. So, very interesting. So, I'm going to maybe try to see if I can put all this down in the description, or a reference at least to this page. All right, so this saves me a lot of looking up stuff, because we can connect on each one of these words. There's other, and we can connect on them. And when we do, it'll take us to that definition. And on the bottom, you can search for amartia. It will show you every place that Greek word is used. So you can see how it's defined in context. Words are defined in context. So this is very, very powerful. So let's just do a summary here. When we talk about sin, there's this other word, amarthma. It means only the sin itself, not the act, in its particular manifestation or manifestations as separate deeds of disobedience to a divine law. Wow, this idea of missing. So that's very related to, but it's to amartia, but it refers to just the sin itself, whereas the act of sinning is amartia, right? It can mean both. How about this asebeia? 763 is ungodliness, positive and active irreligion, a condition of direct opposition to God. Wow, 763. How about this other one, 3876? Parakoh is strictly failing to hear or hearing carelessly and inattentively. The sin in this failure is this failure to hear when God speaks, and also it's a failure to listen. And also the active disobedience which ordinarily follows. Yeah, if God's speaking and we refuse to listen, that is that word. And this is usually going to cause a lot of other problems, right? Because we're not taking his advice. I think we've all done all of these. Anomia, 458, is lawlessness, a contempt of the law, a condition or action not simply without law, as the etymology might indicate, but contrary to law. The law is usually, by implication, the Mosaic law. but there is a law of the Spirit, anomia, namas. So anomia of the Spirit would be not listening to the Spirit. And there's a lot of that in the churches today in our life. Paranomia, 3892, occurs only once in 2 Peter 2:16 and is practically equivalent to anomia. Well, para means alongside, and so it's basically saying you refuse to come alongside the law, close beside the law. Same type of thing. And then there is parabasiv, 3847, is the word transgression. So I was going to look that up, transgression. Yeah. The passing beyond some, this is different than trespasses, but here transgression, the passing beyond some assigned limit. It is a breaking of distinctly recognized commandment. It consequently means more than amartia. So amartia means missing the target. Now we have a specifically laid out commandment, and is going beyond that, is going beyond that, beyond some assigned limit. Then we have this paraptwma, we already looked at that. And then we have agnohma, which is agnohma 51. These are Strong's numbers. Occurs only once, Hebrews 9:7, indicates error, sin which to a certain extent is the result of ignorance. Then we have htthma 2275, denotes being worsted, defeated. In an ethical sense, it means a failure in duty or a fault. And then it says, all these different words may occasionally, but not usually, be used simply to describe the same act from different points of views. The fundamental meanings of these words may well be summed up in the language of Trench, who's a Greek scholar. All these different words may occasionally, but not usually, so not usually, but occasionally, may be referring to the same act, right? The same sin or whatever, from different points of view. So sin may be regarded as the missing of a mark or aim. So you're missing of a target or aim. It is then amartia or amarthma, the overpassing or transgressing of a line drawn in the sand, right? It is then parabasiv. The disobedience to a voice, in which case it is parakoh. So if the Lord tells you something, you don't obey him. Parakoh. The falling where one should have stood upright. So you should have been standing upright and then you fell. This will be paraptwma. So you fell away. You should have been standing and you fell away. Ignorance of what one ought to have known, right? Sins of omission. Agnohma, right? You should have known the law, but you didn't know the law, so you were ignorant. This diminishing of that which should have been rendered in full measure, which is htthma. So you're diminishing what you should have given full attention to, you diminish it, or you didn't give it full measure, you gave it something partial. And non-observance of a law is anomia or paranomia. So hey, this is pretty good. So wow. So we just know we're guilty. Don't we know when we're guilty? Like it, that's what he says, our conscience. Guilty. We know it. We have the accuser of the brother. Satan will let us know right away. We screwed up, man. So in the New Testament, the word guilt, there's so many uses of the word guilt. Jesus says if you were blind, you would have no guilt to the Pharisees. And let's see what else. And so 1 Corinthians 1:8 says, who will sustain you to the end, guiltless in the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. So guilty, if he is guilty of a sexual immorality or greed or is an idolater, da-da-da. So, you know, there's a lot of guilt. We carry a lot of guilt. We'll talk maybe in another video. Whoever keeps the whole law, James 2:10, but fails in one point. This is why you can't do the old covenant, mix it with the new covenant. Has become guilty of it all. James 2:10. And so, let's look at James 2:10 and let's look at the Bible, James 2:10, and just see what that word guilt means. I think we're going to have to call this video, and we can ask the Lord at another time to go into understanding this more. Guilty is the inakos, held in, bound by, liable, condition, penalty, or imputation. So you are held, one who is held in anything, so that he cannot escape. He is bound. He is under obligation. He's subject to. He's liable. Yeah, worthy of punishment. Guilty. Yeah, that's the judgment, right? You are guilty. You are judged guilty. So we are guilty. We know it. So what do we do about that? Let's look at that in another video. Okay, how do we handle this sin? What do we do with it? How do we get rid of it? But now we know what this is all about, right? It's we all know it innately if we don't know all the scholarly words, right? We know what it is. And we got to figure out what do we do to get rid of it, and how do we consistently make progress against it, right? Because it wants to enslave us and take dominion over us, right? And kill us. That's what it wants to do. We'll look at that in another video, okay? God bless you. Bye-bye.